my beautiful mythical creatures, Ace here, she. And I'm back at you with another podfic. Someone Like You. Chapter 18. Izuku ran out of the alleyway he slept in. He was being chased by a low-ranked hero trying to make him out to be a villain, just because he wasn't sleeping under a roof. It was early in the morning, and the sun was barely beginning to rise above the rooftops. Izuku heard yelling coming from behind him. The hero was gaining on him. Izuku ducked into the next alleyway. You know, I'm saying alleyway, the actual word they put is alley. He saw a fire escape pulled down and immediately started climbing. Quirks may have changed many things in humans over the centuries, but the one thing that had not changed is the propensity not to look for anything above the level of the eyes. Izuku crouched down on the rooftop, the tips of his hair barely visible above the railing. Izuku heard the hero run into the alley. Damn kid, where did he go? We can add illegal quirk use to his list of crimes. Izuku rolled his eyes, but kept quiet. He heard the hero grumble, but left the alley empty-handed. He followed the hero from above. He wasn't going to be stupid enough to go down and leave the alley, only to bump into the hero. The hero turned left out of the alley and started walking. Izuku watched the hero until he rounded the corner. Only then did he move. It was still too dangerous to travel at ground level, but the gym was only a couple blocks away. That was the only reason Izuku slept in that alley to begin with. He could use the gym for personal hygiene after his normal workout, then grab something from the vending machine on his way to work. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to sleep in that alley again. He wasn't caught this time because the hero was loudly talking to himself and didn't care about silencing his footsteps whatsoever. But that didn't mean a quieter hero wouldn't catch him next time. And he was positive that the good-natured hero would escort him back into that hell they would call his home. Maybe he would check out the trash heap by the ocean. He had seen some homeless people sleeping there before. There was enough junk around that it should be able to hide him from the heroes and elements, but some people in general could be very territorial, especially those with animal mutation quirks. Unfortunately, most of the homeless population in this city had mutation quirks. It would be a toss-up if anyone had claimed the beach or not. He would just have to see when he got out there. Izuku walked into the cafe and said hello to Uraraka, then began to clean and make the different brewed coffees. The day continued on like any other. For some reason, there were always fewer people requesting consultations on Fridays, so it allowed Izuku to help Uraraka out more. Izuku had done a quick quirk consultation with her one day when they were working in between customers. She mentioned how she always had some nausea after using her quirk for too long, or tried using it on something that was too heavy. Izuku suggested trying to use it constantly on items that were lightweight and keep it on for a little longer every day. So after getting permission from boss, Uraraka began floating orders in the air while waiting for people to pick them up. In the past, there had been people accused of stealing orders, so normally one of them had to physically hand the order to the appropriate instead of just putting it on the counter. Even if it was only 30 seconds, it took time away from being able to help the next person. So by floating it high in the air, they could prevent theft and still be able to help the next person. Not to mention Boss was able to make it as a show. Some people came in specifically to watch Uraraka float coffee and pastries across the cafe. They even began to attract a younger crowd. It was like magic for the public. Ignoring the fact that magic of the past was literally quirks of the present. "Hey Zuko, are you okay?" Uraraka asked as she floated a pastry over to a table. "You haven't really said a whole lot today." "I'm fine," he responded. The dark roast had been popular that day, and Izuku needed to brew more. "I can tell you're lying. You're not fine," she spoke softly. "You have a bruise on your cheek, and I can see the cut. You have been trying to hide it away from people all day by focusing on making orders and keeping your head down, but I saw it." Izuku stopped what he was doing and held his hand to his cheek. "I don't have any concealer to cover it up, so I know I wouldn't have been able to hide it, but no one else said anything, so I figured it wasn't that bad." Izuku stepped closer to Uraraka, back still to the counter. "I know we don't know each other well, but can I trust you?" he asked. "Probably not," she said, "because as you said, we don't know each other well." Izuku laughed quietly. "That's true. So I won't tell you everything, but I'll tell you a little." Izuku twisted his fingers for a few moments before finally speaking. "My mother doesn't approve of my career choice. She wants me to just work every day at this cafe for the rest of my life so I can support her. I didn't find that out until recently though, when I went to check my bank account and found all my money gone. I questioned her about it and she said it was her money, so she would use it how she pleased. Then she slapped me and called me her cash cow. I ran away last night and slept in an alley. I'm glad I have a gym membership though, so I could at least take care of my personal hygiene." "If she took all your money, what have you been eating?" she asked, eyes wide. Izuku tilted his head to the side. "I skipped meals before. It's not too bad." "I have too, but that doesn't mean it's good." "Why have you skipped meals then?" She smiled at Izuku sheepishly. "My family owns a construction company, but has never done really well. We have been poor for as long as I can remember. We really can't compete with the larger companies. I would skip meals so that my parents could pay our rent. I always told them I ate a big meal at school or was feeling sick, something like that, so that they wouldn't waste food on me." "Do your parents live around here, or do you commute to work?" "No, I moved here by myself for school. My parents live in a small town about almost 10 hours north of here. I'm going to go to UA. I found a cheap apartment a little ways from here, and I can actually afford it with this job." "Do your parents rent the apartment for you?" "No, the complex I found didn't really ask any questions, and they didn't seem to care that I was underage." "That seems sketchy. I'm walking you home tonight before I find a place to stay." Uraraka laughed loudly. "I'm fine. I can walk home myself. I'm going to be a hero after all." "But you're not a hero yet. What if you get uncomfortable walking in an area that might have a lot of villains?" "My family's construction company actually hires a lot of people with villainous quirks, and even people with no quirks at all. That's one of the reasons we don't do as well as our competitors. Some people think the buildings made by our company are cursed, but my parents do some of the best work I have ever seen, Uraka said excitedly. Then she looked at the ground guiltily. We could pay our workers less because of their quirks, but that means we can afford to buy better materials. I hope you don't think we're cruel to take advantage of them like that. Just from working with you, I can tell you're the type of person that looks past quirks. But my parents make the same amount of money as our workers do, she added quickly. I don't think you're cruel. Actually, you're a role model, he said with a smile. They hire anyone, no matter their quirk status, and don't underpay their employees, while at the same time stuffing their pockets. In fact, by using better materials, you're probably allowing your employees to work longer without being laid off. If you both had employees with undesirable quirk status and subpar construction, your business would have closed long ago, and all your employees would be out of a job. Well, and that's why I'm not worried about walking alone. I grew up around outcasts. People with villainous quirks and villains are not the same thing. I'm still walking you home. Izuku and Uraka walked out the front door after their shift. Boss locked the door behind them. They walked down the street in silence, Uraka leading the way. Izuku obviously didn't know where she lived, so it wasn't like he could do much more than follow her. It kind of made walking her home seem silly. But if anyone jumped out at them, he could just jump in front of her before anything happened. He followed her as she entered the train station and swiped her pass, while Izuku purchased a ticket. That reminded him that he may need to purchase a monthly train pass. He could just run to work every day, but it is quite far. He would have to go on a run one day and see how it goes. Izuku paused momentarily before getting on the train. Uraka looked at him. Are you coming? She asked. Yeah, Izuku said slowly. He happened to notice that the train they were going on was leading straight to southern Musatafu. He sat down in the seat next to Uraka, trying to hide his concern. She didn't really think it was necessary for Izuku to walk her home to begin with, but Izuku thought differently now that he knew where she lived. They got off the train in southern Musatafu and began walking deeper than Izuku had gone when he bought his cell phone. As they turned down street after street, Izuku looked at the signs and became more curious. He hummed as he followed Uraka up a flight of stairs and down the hall to her door. They passed a man with a badger mutation grumbling as he carried a box down the way they had come. Izuku stopped at the door next to hers. Well, that's an interesting coincidence. What is? Uraka asked, unlocking the door. This is the apartment I'm supposed to move into on Monday. What? They heard a yell from behind them. They turned to look at the man they had passed on their way to the apartment. You're the quirkless freak that's getting me kicked out of my apartment, he sneered. The man lunged at Izuku. If I kill you, I won't have to move, he yelled. Izuku braced himself for impact, planning to swipe the man's legs out from underneath him and toss him over the end of the balcony. They were only on the second floor, so the fall wouldn't do much more than knock the wind out of him, and maybe break a bone or two, depending on how he landed. but it wouldn't kill him by any means. Before he got in close enough to scratch Izuku, he was surrounded by a blue light and pulled backwards towards the stairs. Within a second, the badger's man's back slammed into the end of a metal rod, and he was slammed into the floor. Beating up the kid isn't going to stop your sorry ass from being on the street. You should have been using your paycheck to pay for your rent instead of drugs and women. The woman who spoke had short brown hair, and her eyes were hidden by a pair of dark sunglasses. She used her broad shoulders and thick arms to easily pick up the badger up off the ground and held him by the collar. She opened the door to Izuku's new apartment and threw him inside. Get your shit and get out. She stood at the door and blocked the man from being able to leave. Hey there, kiddies, she said cheerfully with a wide smile. I'm the building's manager. You can call me Big Sister Meg. If you have any questions, just let me know. I will take care of them for you. The smile turned mischievous, and Meg slammed her right fist into her left palm. Izuku and Uraraka laughed at Meg's antics. Thank you, Izuku told her, turning around and following Uraraka into her apartment. Izuku's smile dims slightly when he shuts Uraraka's door behind him. So, she said slowly, you're corkless? Yeah. I guess you were just being nice before then. You must really think I am a horrible person, huh? She said sadly. My answer hasn't changed as long as your opinion of me hasn't. Uraraka looked at Izuku in surprise, then broke out into a cheeky grin. Nah, you're still a cool guy, and smart to boot. I can't wait to be your neighbor. Izuku felt a warmth glow in his chest, and he smiled wide. Thanks, he said. No problem. Uraraka had a thoughtful look. You know what? We're both working tomorrow. Why don't you stay the night? In fact, if you want, you can stay until your apartment is available. I don't have a couch or really any furniture other than my futon, Uraraka pointed out, but I have a lot of blankets. Izuku took the opportunity to look around. Indeed, the apartment was barren except for a futon rolled up in the corner of a loft-style apartment and a pile of blankets next to it. Her clothes were folded up in a couple suitcases along the wall. There was a small row of cabinets along the back wall, which also contained a sink, combustion oven and stove, and a refrigerator. The counters were empty. There was an open door off the kitchen. Izuku could see some white tiles inside the room and assumed it was the bathroom. He wondered if, considering the state of the rest of the apartment, her refrigerator was nearly empty. I don't know. I don't want to impose. Or possibly take up much needed blankets from her. It was still April. It could get cold at night, and these apartments didn't have the best insulation. You walked me home. It's the least I can do, especially now that I understand a little more what's going on. I want to be your friend, and I can't let a friend sleep out in the cold. And that is the end of chapter 18. I hope you guys like it. Chapter 19 will be next, and I'll read the first little bit of it. Izuku sat in his new apartment just staring at his new uniform. So it has been quite a while since I've done this. I forgot how much I love it. Also, look, my little PNG tuber. I also have some emotions of it. See, watch. Oh no. confused. So confused. I love my little emotions and it's so exciting. And I got angry. That's about as much as I look when I'm actually angry. But I hope you guys enjoyed. So until next time, remember, stay hydrated and eat donuts. Bye bye.